Hello everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, buying a retirement home for half the market value. Part 4 of our series on home equity solutions in retirement with financial advisor Eric Brasch. Welcome to the fourth segment, Eric.
Thank you. It's very good to be here.
Eric, you're blowing my mind here. If you missed yesterday's segment, you need to watch that. Actually, you need to watch them all in succession, in my view. I think there's some chronology to this that could really benefit you in your thinking in retirement. Now, this was, when I first heard this 2 years ago, I was with several guys that are on the same speaking circuits that I'm on, and everybody said the same thing. We were listening to this guy at American College teach this, and I was like, no way. No way can this be true. But HECM, we usually think of it, and I think the public does as well, it's reverse mortgage, it's income. You can either get a lump sum, a time certain amount of payments, or lifetime payments,
Correct.
all tax-free.
Correct.
But I did not know that you could buy a home with HECM. So the top value of a home that HECM goes and participates in now is what? What's that price tag?
I can't.
I think it's 636, 150, right? Okay.
Right.
All right. Now
and keep in mind, that's not the maximum size of a home that you can purchase or do a home equity conversion on. For instance, if you're somebody who lives in Huntington Beach and your house is worth $1.1 million, you can still do a home equity conversion. They're just going to cap you at that maximum number.
So if I have a home that's $800,000, they'll participate the first 636, 150.
That's exactly right.
And that I'm done.
Correct.
Okay, that's all they'll participate.
Correct.
But I think most middle America is going to be able to hit this number and go
I think
below
you're right.
You know?
I think the mean number of a home mortgage, especially in the state of Arizona, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. Now check this out. Now I just spoke at I spoke at some of my real estate buddies. I told these guys, those people, especially in our market right now, in the summer in Phoenix, where we're broadcasting from the surface of the sun, it seems like, I have to say. Most of these people are starting their, if you have 636 in that, you've already got pre-qualified and you went through your HECM loan officer and got all that. And if you don't have one, there's Eric. But think about it. They're looking at $700,000 homes because by the time they go through the negotiations and everything, it's reasonable to get down that far. That's less than 10% negotiation.
That's correct.
So they're looking at higher numbers, about 7, to get down to this final HECM ceiling of $636,150. All right, I have to be 62 again?
Correct, 62 as always.
Prime residence?
Prime residence.
And Steve's personal opinion, you don't have to buy this, but I think you need to think in your mind, I'm living here for the rest of my life.
That's correct. The concept of the home equity conversion was built and generated and founded on that premise, which is you just don't have to make a payment anymore for the rest of your life.
Okay, now let's even put a little more fine-tuned, put a point to this. When we say you don't have a mortgage payment, we're correct. You do have to pay your property taxes.
And your insurance.
And your insurance.
And your HOA.
You got to pay all that still.
Right.
And by the way, this isn't an open-ended contract. You know, you could be the Guinness Book of World Records. What did Gene Clement live to what? 122 years, 164 days? I did this, and yours truly, Steve Savant, and my wife, we did HECM home for purchase deal, right? My certain time date when it terminates, when I have to have a pay. He says, but I thought you said you didn't have a payment. Well, you technically do. Mine's in the year 2102. I mean, come on, guys, it's 2102. Pretty sure I won't be around.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So they have to put some kind of futuristic maturity date to this.
Correct.
There's nothing open-ended like that. And it's out there in the future. I think everybody would agree, unless there's some bionic man medical technology. Right.
And then they'll have to revise the HECM rules, of course.
Okay. All right. So I love this idea. This is a huge idea. I have a client. They got hurt in 2008. Now they look at their $250. It doesn't look like much. But I looked at them. They were 73 and she was 72. They could get a home for $540,000.
That's correct.
With a $250,000 one-time drop, and they're done.
That's correct.
Talk a bit about the mechanics of this. Now I know you do this stuff, but it's just nobody knows about it.
Right. And the reason why nobody knows about it is because it was similar to what happened with annuities several years ago. They get there's a stigmatism that comes with a reverse mortgage. Well, they're going to take your home. They don't take your home. There's several options upon a death of the person who owns a home equity conversion mortgage to do. They don't take your home. And so that's the biggest deciding factors when people hear home reverse mortgage. It's a negative deterrent. It doesn't need to be. There's so many options. And as we go through this, and when I sit down and explain the options to people, they realize this could benefit me in more ways than one.
Well, think about this. You're looking for your retirement home, and you only have $250,000. You'd have to go to the outer boundaries of Maricopa County here in Arizona, at least, to really get anything, and you'd be so far out there. Now we've went from 250 to 540,000, and you're done. I recommend, this is just Steve Savant, when I went out there, you need to get a newer home if you can, because I'm trying to say, I bought a home that was about 200, built in 2008, 2009. I'm looking for that AC to kind of last. I'm looking for that roof to last. I don't want to really get involved in any repairs. It's still my house.
Correct.
And by the way, a little side note, most of the negative press on the first 2 pages of Google on this is because the people didn't pay their property taxes, insurance premiums, HOA. So listen, you still got those payments. So let's think, and remember, it's got to stay in maintenance. You know, you can't just let it deteriorate. Your neighbor calls to the HOA and says, hey, they're taking a place, looks like a dump. Yeah, that could be a problem.
That's correct.
So it has to be maintained, because your amortization schedule that HUD's going to give you is going to look at those numbers, and that's on best maintenance practices. Okay. Now, when I'm looking at this, again, I hate to bring this up just because it's so painful, but people that that are self-employed have a little bit tougher problem here. Because they got to get to this income ratio. In fact, what do you call that again?
The debt ratio. But with a home equity conversion, it's not a debt ratio. It's a reserve of income. There's an amount that you have to have in reserve. So it's a lot easier to qualify than a regular mortgage.
Even for a self-employed.
Even for self-employed, because it's a residual income you have to support. Not so much a debt ratio. So it's a lot easier to qualify for these types of things than if you were just to purchase a home regularly as a self-employed person. Okay, so you agreed with me when I first met you, Eric, a couple months back. You said, when we were talking about this, he says, nobody's talking about this. And I said, well, I am, and I want to keep talking about it because I think this could be huge. You've been in this mortgage thing. You've also been a financial planner and an advisor for a long time. Right.
How big is this going to be for senior? I mean, how?
It's another leg of the chair that you need to have a solid portfolio. People don't understand, especially baby boomers, which is who we're talking about. They go their entire lives, and what was the number one thing they wanted to do? Pay off their mortgage.
Right.
So you have a $300,000 house with $300,000 you cannot access. Well, what was the point of paying it off then? Just so you don't have a payment? Well, that you're earning 0% on your return because you're not able to access it. Now we have a way to do that. With a purchase, some people go their whole lives without their dream home. Then they retire, they can't afford their dream home. Now there's a way that they can. You're able to get that $450,000, $500,000 house that you've always wanted, even though you only had $200,000 to do it.
And just a little self-confession here. Remember, 90% of the email, and if I'm in a live seminar, the number one complaint, generally by women, is, but Steve, if I live into the late 90s, there may not be, depending upon the market, there may not be a lot of equity or none at all.
That's correct.
I'm happy to tell you that. And so what do? Because you saved money by doing this, I personally, my wife and I bought a guaranteed survivor UL to make sure our kids got something. They may not get it from the house, but they're going to get it from this. And the leverage of these two are just huge. You're leveraging second to die, and if you want to call me on that, I'll be happy to talk to you about it. But we're also leveraging this idea of getting a nicer home, right? And in my view, you should be in the 2000 something just because of the air conditioning, roof, things of that nature. You don't want to make those payments later on and fix those things. So I highly recommend that if you're looking at a house and you're saying, I haven't bought my retirement house, this is the time to go out and hunt. Even if you're not ready to buy right this second, you need to kind of get an idea. And I say, if your number is $500,000, that's what you're pre-qualified for. You went to people like Eric or an analyst, and you pre-qualified for $500,000, you might want to look at $600,000 and work your way down from a negotiation point of view. Now, no mortgage payment. I love that. House, a little newer house. I don't want to do maintenance either because that's another. And I cannot stress this. One level, if you're a senior and you're a boomer like me,
that's correct.
You need to start losing the stair mentality too, because we shouldn't have stairs at this time. Almost all the things that shorten human mortality in our elder years are morbidity accidents, stairs, just things that we don't think about when we're in our 60s that we're going to have to think about when we're in our 70s, 80s.
Correct.
So I see a lot of people now that are looking at this HECM brand new. It could restore a retirement dream. You said, I written off. People have written off their retirement house, their dream of their house for their retirement, and now that's all changed.
Correct. Okay. The number one thing that somebody who retires is what they're trying to do is they're trying to downsize their life, in the sense that they're trying to downsize their expenditures. They're trying to downsize everything and minimize everything. With this type of a loan, you do not have to downsize your home unless you just don't want a bigger house. You don't have to financially, though.
I like the application, I like the flexibility, and I like the ability to have a home without a mortgage. Listen, that was the goal of our preceding generation. We had other issues to deal with. This is an option now to return to that kind of mentality. You're going to need it, especially in the long haul. We need to really manage and budget, and having no mortgage payment is a major piece of the budget. Listen, don't forget to watch our next segment on the Appreciating Line of Credit, part 5 of our series on home equity solutions. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, or financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money. The name of the business.